Corporate revenues increased well above the additional costs businesses have taken on as a result of the pandemic. Profit margins rose 40% last year and are at the highest levels in the past 70 years. These record profits have come at the direct expense of consumers, workers, and small businesses.
All of this corporate concentration has a direct impact on widening economic disparities, making workers, consumers, and small businesses unable to bargain for fairer wages, lower prices, or a sustainable market share.
When workers are able to form a union and collectively bargain, their wages, benefits, and working conditions improve. On average, a worker covered by a union contract earns 10.2% more than a similar worker who is not in a union.
Addressing the imbalance of power in the U.S. economy requires a policy agenda that addresses both competition policy and labor policy. Addressing both does more than either can do alone, leading to real wage increases for workers and more efficient outcomes.
Without competition to undercut highly concentrated markets, prices are able to go up. And in an environment where there is inflation, that allows for companies essentially to raise prices with a little bit of a smokescreen present.
When we looked out, the biggest price hikes in 2021 tended to come in the most concentrated industries. Concentrated industries also are more susceptible to coordinated pricing. It is easier to coordinate with 3 rivals in an oligopoly than with 30 in a competitive industry.
53% of all meat processing in the United States is handled by 4 companies. This is a cartel. 80% of soybean processors, that's a cartel. 73% of beef processors, 4 companies, that's a cartel. When we talk about that level of market consolidation, it may not be explicit, there may not be a written piece of paper saying we're going to set wages lower or set prices higher, but we all know what's going on here.
Look, boxing isn't boxing because they stand in the corner and hug one another, right? It's boxing because the referee breaks them up and makes them actually fight, and that's what we have to do in our markets to make them competitive.
Monopoly forces are sinister forces. The outcomes in our growing concentration of power suggests that there is a problem there and we're not regulating it. Now, I said it. Regulation. There is an appropriate role for rules of the game and referees in a free society and in free market competition.
As I alluded to earlier in one of my answers, I don't really trust these measures of national concentration. Most markets that we discuss, consumers aren't buying kind of nationally. You know, I think there's a genuine concern that if you have overly concentrated markets in certain areas, then there are potential privacy risks. You know, if Google got hacked significantly, then obviously there'd be more of a risk than if you had many competitors to Google.
I think one of the areas we talked about in the chairman, I think, rightly noted, when people come and meet with members of Congress, they're often looking for Congress to add barriers to entry to avoid competition. It's crony capitalism at its worst. It's the opposite of what we should be doing in Washington. We should try to make pure competition in the marketplace, in particular as it relates to consumers.
The share of workers represented by a union dropped by well over half, from 27% to less than 12% between 1979 and 2021. What that means is that the vital